Alright, in this video we will be talking about some of the more specific details of clinical trials, which you'll also sometimes hear referred to as human intervention studies. So the objectives: I want you to be able to really define what a clinical trial is and be able to identify it, so that when we're talking about clinical trials you know sort of what's going on. We'll talk a little bit about the placebo and the nocebo effect. Many of you may be familiar with this, and we need to be aware of their importance in clinical trials. We'll also describe the importance of randomization and the purposes of blinded and double-blinded studies. So clinical trials are prospective in that they are starting at a specific point in time and they're really looking forward. So they're similar to the prospective cohort studies that we talked about when we looked at epidemiology, but they're a little bit different in that they have more well-defined parameters. So with these sort of studies, you are going to take a population and you're going to divide them up into two groups. And one group will receive a particular set of treatment and another group will receive a different type of treatment. Now ideally you're going to have the same age, the same diet, same gender, other demographics, health background, habits, etc. Ideally, if you could take identical twins and assign one to the A treatment group and the other to the B treatment group, so the one that didn't receive type B, that would be ideal. So you don't want to have any variables different between these two. And then you would go ahead and you'd perform the study and measure the outcome. So this is where the placebo comes into an effect. So the idea with the placebo is to please or to satisfy someone. So placebos are basically sugar pills, so the inert substances that you give to what would be the group 2 in this case, to simulate like they're getting, so that this group thinks that they're getting the A treatment but aren't actually getting it. So you might have a sports drink, for example, and one sports drink is just a regular drink with A, and the other group is a sports drink with B on it. And then you might have them run a race 100 meters and you'd measure the outcome, and the people that got the regular sports drink in A might get 11 seconds, and the people that got the different sports drinks with the vital means might get be faster. Now it could turn out that these vital means are actually just a dye, so that this appears orange instead of blue, but other than that the sports drinks are identical, and so it would be a psychological effect that makes these individuals think that they're getting something special, and so they perform at a higher level. So it's more of a psychological effect that you have to take into account. Ideally, in studies where you're not studying the placebo, you would give them something that they would think is identical to it, but they won't know which one they are. I also mentioned the nocebo here. So the nocebo is sort of the opposite of the placebo. So some people, when they don't get the placebo, they may underperform due to the fact that they think they're getting shorted. So if they don't get the medical treatment, they may have a negative outcome, and that's really what's known as the nocebo effect, that you don't get the treatment or you think you're not getting a treatment, and then you have a negative outcome due to it. Another important aspect of clinical trials are randomization. So let's say that you were testing a substance that was supposed to increase your mood. And so you might think, okay, it would be a good idea to put people that are starting off in a more down state over here in the group that's going to get the treatment, and then this group over here that's going to not get the treatment, it's going to get the placebo. Let's put the happier people in here because they're less likely to benefit from this. And while you may even have good intentions with this, this leads to problematic results in that if these guys are down more than likely they're not always going to be down. So there's variation in how their mood would be, how ill they would feel, and so they're more likely to get better. This group's more likely to not have an effect. So if this group got the placebo and this group got the treatment, you might say that the treatment was effective because it appeared that these guys got better, but in reality this is just the regression to the mean. So they got better just because they're at a low point and they're more likely to get better from that point. It's sort of like when you get hurt in a sporting event or something. You may not seek treatment until you are at your worst pain, and then you might start to improve upon where your worst pain was, and then you might attribute that improvement to whatever the treatment was, when in reality it was just time and natural body healing processes. You just didn't seek treatment until the final. And so that problem is known as the regression to the mean. So to really prevent this problem from happening, it's important that you involve randomization. So randomization would put some of the happy people and some of the sad people in the placebo group, and some of the happy and the sad people in the treatment group. And then you might have a treatment effect that is not as big, but you're more likely to actually have a real effect and be measuring the effect of the treatment and not just the fact that these people were feeling bad to begin with. Also important is the blinding effect. So blinding is referred to as to whether you know or you don't know whether you're getting the placebo or not. So the doctor may be treating you, and he may be giving you a substance, and then he would tell you that this substance is actually a placebo, so he doesn't really expect you to get better. And then you might have a different outcome because you know you're getting the placebo effect, or the placebo and not the actual treatment. However, in a blinded study, the doctor or the scientist might give you a treatment, and he wouldn't tell you whether the treatment was the placebo or whether it was the actual treatment. And so you are more likely to find what the actual result of that experiment is, because you'll know that it's related to whether you got the treatment or not, and not whether you thought the treatment was going to work or not work. Now, there are certain cases where it's important to look at a double-blinded study. So sometimes how the doctor will perceive you or treat you will depend on whether they're giving you the placebo, or giving the placebo or the actual treatment. In some cases, it could be that the doctors are interpreting the results differently. So maybe you are kind of not feeling well, and the doctor knows that you are receiving the placebo. He might say, okay, well, this person isn't feeling that bad, so he might put you in one group. Whereas if he thought you were getting the treatment, he might be like, oh, this person isn't feeling the greatest, I'm going to put him in the other group. I'm going to say he's not well. So researcher bias can be prevented by using double-blinded procedures when you're designing your study.